Dragon Ballers, if you're looking to buy Dragon Ball Super or One Piece sealed product, make sure to get 5% off using my link to Mystic TCG down in the description. You can also sell cards to them using their Facebook link, which is also down in the description. Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I want to go over each of the SCRs coming out in set 20 Power Absorb, because to be honest with you, this set is kind of looking like a banger. And I know that there's like a low bar set because set 19 didn't have great archetypes. It did have good standalone cards and a really game-changing SCR. Cell Max was even pretty solid as well. And of course, there was Cumber. So yeah, really good SCRs in that set too. But this set has great archetypes for the most part and some really good SCRs. And there are a lot of intricacies as to whether or not you'd want to use each of these in your deck. We're going to talk about that in today's video. If you guys are new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a video. And let's just jump right in. We'll tackle them one by one. And we'll start with Golden Cooler Radiant Prides. This is an 8-drop black battle card, even though it looks incredibly yellow. I'm so stoked that Golden Cooler is a card now. I think I mentioned it like many videos ago that I was waiting for a card like this. And I've actually got a Cooler statue, like I think somewhere up here behind me. I just love Cooler as opposed to Frieza. I think Frieza's cool too, but I'm a big fan of Cooler. So anyways, this is, yeah, 8-drop black battle card. We have Ultimate Double Strike Blocker. Auto. When this card is played, choose all of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barriers, send them to the owner's warp. So we have a board wipe. Solid, pretty baseline for an SCR. Then your opponent chooses 5 cards in their hand and adds the rest to their Z energy, and this card gains barrier for the turn. Okay, so the second half of that effect is like mind-blowing. The way I'm reading this, it's like your opponent chooses 5 cards in their hand to keep and adds the rest to their Z energy. I'm pretty sure that's the intention here, even though it's maybe a little bit unclear, but that's what I'm getting from this. Your opponent chooses 5 cards in their hand and adds the rest, meaning the other cards in their hand, to the Z energy. So what's funny is your opponent's getting Z energy ramped like crazy. So going into their next turn, they can just make a bunch of Z energy plays if they have the energy to do so. But this is such an interesting card because it's the first card we've seen in a long time that actually puts just a hard limit on your opponent's hand. Like, we've banned cards for this type of thing, right? Gogeta Hero Revive is currently on the ban list, and the Cell Chain, Perfect Force Cell, the 3-drop that goes into that card, is currently limited to 1 copy per deck because of similar things like this. Now, granted, this limits your opponent's hand down to 5, not 3 like those cards do, but 5 cards is still a very powerful effect when most decks in the format typically sit around like the 10 to 12 card range in hand, except for like Crimson, which is like sometimes 14, 15, right? So this is a really strong effect. Activate main for 5 energy of any color. If your opponent has 4 or more energy, play this card from your hand. Now, I really like this cost on the card, and in my opinion, it honestly, I would say, makes it balanced, even though an effect like this seems really strong. You gotta think about it like this. Most SCRs nowadays, especially in the last like 3, 4, 5 sets, have been allowed to be played much earlier. The baseline for SCRs used to be turn 5, but we've seen a lot of SCRs coming down on turn 4, some even on turn 3, like Gohan Beast, for example. This thing being limited back to turn 5, it tells me that Bandai kind of realizes how powerful this is for any deck that really just doesn't have like a mainstay SCR or wants to do another option and limit your opponent's hand size that way. The other thing I noticed too is this card does not have Deflect, which is another choice that I really like. So your random Frieza decks playing Cold Bloodlust can stop this. Your decks playing Death Blaster can stop this. There's not too much else, to be honest, that can really interact with it, but there are some options which I do very much like about this card's design. And then activate main / battle. If this card is in rest mode, you place 2 of your opponent's Z energy in the owner's drop. Switch this card to active mode. So that is not a once per turn activate main / battle. So let's say you put 6 cards in your opponent's Z energy. Let's say they had 11 cards in hand. They have to Z charge 6 of them. You can restand this thing 3 times, swing 3 times, or just, you know, block with it X amount of times. That is a very powerful effect. Like, this thing is honestly a game ender when it comes down. Of course, it's got answers. Like, if you have Time Magic in yellow or Release from Evil, this thing's not gonna be able to restand. You could even like Mafuba it in blue or do some other stuff where you minus it. I guess it has barrier for the turn it's played, so maybe red wouldn't deal with it so well. But you get the point. This card has answers, which I do quite like. It's very powerful, very game ending on play. It's going to turn the tide greatly for the player who plays this, but I do like the fact that it's restricted back to turn 5, because for this card's power level, I think that's pretty adequate. But anyways, let's move along here to the yellow secret rare. We have You Are Number 1. This is a 3-cost yellow extra card. Ultimate. Activate main / battle. If your leader is a Sand or Earthling card, both mono yellow, and your opponent has 3 or more energy, choose up to 1 of your opponent's cards, ignoring barrier, switch it to rest mode, play 1 yellow Son Goku from your deck, hand, or drop, shuffle your deck if you look through it, and then for the turn, the played card gets plus 10,000 power, triple strike, and dual attack, and can't be removed from your battle area by skills. So that is just super powering whatever Goku you decide to play off of this card. Now let's take a look at the different Goku cards. I did comb through the card database, and there are several yellow Gokus, but to be honest with you, I didn't really see any great ones, except for obviously SS3 Goku Universe at Stake. That's coming out in the set. It's kind of the card that this SCR is meant to be used with. And then there were some other yellow ones, but I didn't really notice any great ones except for Goku Relentless Assault. So what he does is when this card's played, choose all your opponent's battle cards in unison and switch them to rest mode. That's actually pretty good, because if your opponent has like a unison blocker, like let's say Boo Unison, you could tap it, get around that blocker, and of course any other blockers they happen to have on the board. And then activate main once per turn. This card gets plus 10,000 power, dual attack, and can't attack leaders for the turn. So a very strange card. Honestly, it was the only Goku that I thought was even remotely playable with this SCR besides Universe at Stake. And don't get me wrong, the SCR itself gives this thing triple strike and dual attack, and you can attack the leader with that. But let's say you're not able to kill them that turn for some reason, you can go and swing at unisons. To be honest with you, I don't think this will ever see play. I think the 99.9% of players are just going to play Universe at Stake. But I did want to comb through the database, look for other yellow Gokus, and just point some light at them. But yeah, Universe at Stake is a very, very powerful card with this SCR, making it even stronger, tapping down more of your opponent's cards, because when this card attacks, it can just tap energy, and so can the SCR. So you can put your opponent in a very, very serious bind. But another thing I wanted to bring up here is that there's a leader that can actually search out this SCR, as funny as it is. So Goten, which is one of the very first promo leaders we've gotten, I want to say, I don't know, maybe around set 3, set 4, this thing can search a yellow extra card once per game. So you can literally add this SCR from your deck to your hand, assuming it's not in your life. Now, is that going to make this leader automatically meta viable? I honestly doubt it. I really don't think that that's going to be enough to make this leader good, because if a leader is just not good enough, it's usually very difficult for it to actually exist in a metagame, because the leader has to carry a good amount of the weight for a competitive deck to be viable. This thing just simply draws and has a once per game senzu bean type of effect on top of a once per game searching an extra card. So I don't know. I mean, I guess playing Universe at Stake is very powerful, and doing it with this SCR makes it even stronger. So it'll be something to experiment with for sure, but I don't foresee it taking over the meta or anything like that. But we'll see. It'll be interesting to see for sure. But of course, we have to bring this conversation up. Are you ever going to play UR #1 over Piccolo Gohan Newfound Might? Piccolo Gohan Newfound Might is the SCR for yellow right now. It's been this way ever since the card came out, and this card essentially just pushes guaranteed damage. Yellow's problem right now is ending games is very, very difficult without Newfound Might a lot of the time, because you're relying on this card, you're relying on an Overwhelm being either Dark Broly or Mirror Crater Absorb, as well as finding your one of, or maybe two of, Further Construction Champa, and then maybe having a Swift Retaliation Cooler to back that up, even though right now I wouldn't say the format is super negate heavy unless you come across specific Floodgate types of decks. So you need these really high power cards to end games as yellow stands right now. Maybe that changes a bit in set 20, and maybe that's where this SCR can see play. But I do think it's going to take a lot of convincing for players to shift away from a free SCR, like Newfound Might, that's proven itself to be so good, and transition over to UR #1 in conjunction with SS3 Goku Universe at Stake. But it'll be very interesting for sure. I think this card could see play, but it's going to take some convincing for sure. Alright, then we have the final SCR for the set, Android 21, Transcendental Predator. So I think they're paying a little bit of homage to Violent Predator, which is cool there. We have a 4-drop SCR. This is super funny. We have a 1 energy 10k combo, 40k. This is a deflect, dual attack, blocker, permanent. Increase the energy cost of this card by 4 in any area other than an owner's hand or battle area. So in the hand and battle area, this is a 4-drop, so typically it seems like you'll be hard casting this, but of course in the 21 deck you can use your opponent's cards to pay for this. This only has 2 specified costs, so you can use 2 of your opponent's cards to pay for it, which is kind of interesting. Permanent: when this card will be removed from your battle area by an opponent's skill, if one or more cards are under this card, you may place all cards from under this card in their owner's drops instead, which is a cool form of protection. And then auto: if your leader is blue or green, when this card is played, choose all your opponent's battle cards and unisons, ignoring barrier, place them under this card, and for every 2 cards chosen, you may add the top card of your deck to your life. Okay, so this is pretty wild, I would say. Like, first of all, unison removal on SCRs becoming a lot more staple-ish, and that effect is super, super strong, because otherwise, unisons are very hard to get off the board. You typically have to attack into them. Other than that, board wipe, again, very on par for SCRs at this point, but giving you life back is absolutely insane. The rejuvenate mechanic never really took off, because it just required too much setup, but this card just doing it on demand is very, very powerful. But the question is, where are you going to play this card? Because it is specifically a blue-green SCR. You really won't play this in a deck like Crimson or probably a deck like Beerus, but you do have options. Of course, you can play this in 21 or any variant of 21, good 21, bad 21, maybe some variants of Android 18, new and old, because the old leader definitely facilitates a green-blue type of deck. You've got Android 16, which is a relatively good rogue deck in most metas, and then you also have the Gamma deck, which can also somewhat facilitate a blue-green SCR that only requires 1 green energy. So those are your options for playing this card for the most part. But what are their what's the SCR competition in those fields? So you have Baby Hatchiyak, which is just a straight up turn under. This card, I will say, in recent history has become a little bit worse, only because blue is so good and yellow is typically pretty good, and those cards have counters that can answer this. But against your reds, your blacks, especially those aggro matchups, if aggro becomes really, really good, Baby Hatchiyak becomes even better, because those colors typically don't have the counters to stop this, and this card just buys you another turn, which is great. In a slower format, you probably do want something like Android 21, which is going to extend the game into the late game and also wipe your opponent's board that they've taken the time to set up. That's where 21 is probably better. But then you have Gohan Beyond the Ultimate, which is a rather similar card to Transcendental Predator in that it wipes the entire board, unisons and all, but it's a bit more costly, I guess you can say. It's cheaper on energy, but it does require you to bottom deck 2 cards from your hand, and it also requires you to have a smaller hand than your opponent after all is said and done. That's not too difficult if you're, you know, playing for this card, and it does also do the burn damage, which is very nice. But on the inverse, you actually get 2 life back with Transcendental Predator. So I think that both cards honestly have great merit. They're both essentially dual attackers, although Gohan's a bit more flexible in that it can untap other cards like the Crimson Leader, for example, getting another swing and another auto proc. So you've got a lot of options there, but I think Transcendental Predator is really nice for not giving your your opponent a plethora of cards back to their hand, and you know, wiping them all that way. And this thing also having a good form of protection makes it harder to remove. So yeah, I think that generally it's very comparable to Gohan Beast, and compared to Baby Hatch, it's pretty format dependent as to which one you want to play. But overall, those are my thoughts on all the SCRs. Let me know in the comments below if I missed anything. If you have any thoughts on these cards, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.